We are so excited to be here today, the three of us. I'm joined by Solreta and Yiannah, and we have a special treat for everyone today. We'll be exploring the depths of Solreta's subconscious and talking with her higher self about a few different things, including predestination, our parallel lifetimes, alien races. We'll see what we get into. But Yiannah is joining me today to co-facilitate and ask these questions because she's got some burning ones. So
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny because, I'm the type of person where I shoot my shot. So when you and I, Solreta, had our last recording, I can't remember what it was on. Like, that's how crazy life is.
Yeah.
In the middle of whatever we were talking about, this burning question came in, something that's been on my mind for quite a while. And it'll be one of the first questions we talk about. And it's just one of those where I'm like, I need the Holy Grail. I need all the truth. And so I can't just listen to people who have their own thoughts. I need like a higher level something to give me some comfort in answers. And so as we're having that recording, I'm like, I gotta ask Solreta, and I'm gonna throw in there to see if I can make this happen. Because why not just ask? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. But if the answer is yes, I can get my answers questioned, or
questions answered.
My questions answered. See how excited I am? And so I'm just so happy to be here and just ready to just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so exciting. And I just want to say, I don't know the questions that you guys have gone over independently. So I'm really excited to have just questions come in that I've got no idea about as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see what your higher self has to share.
Yeah. Awesome.
Ready?
Let's go for it.
Do this.
Now, may we speak with Solreta's higher self, please?
Yes.
We have permission to speak with Solreta's higher self?
Yes.
Wonderful. And do we have permission to ask questions today?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, we have prepared some questions, Yiannah and I, to ask you today. But before we dive into those questions, I'm curious, is there anything that you'd like to show us or anything you'd like to share with us before those questions?
Not at the moment.
All right.
Jump into questions.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well then, Yiannah, would you like to ask your first question?
We're just going to dive in with the age-old question of, are things predestined?
I'm being shown stepping stones that are coming in from outside of our body. So they would be what Spirit was saying is soul destiny, stepping stones. So there's certain tracks of evolution that each of us as an individual will have and are working towards. And so some of these are predestined, but the little happenings that happen within embodiment, some of them are unplanned, but a lot are predestined. So you'll find that there's certain people that you're supposed to connect with, but it's not always known exactly how the connection will take place. So there's a myriad of different things that can intervene, or sometimes different timelines oscillate in on a stronger wavelength when certain lessons have to come in sooner rather than later. So not everything's sort of laid out in a linear sense. And we do oscillate in and out of different timelines for some of these soul destinies as well.
So to clarify, the trajectory of where we are, quote unquote, meant to go is predestined. How we get there and the little things that kind of play out and how relationships could form could shift how we get there. But at the end, we're going to that same destination.
Yes. And we can speed up the process. There's certain soul lessons and karmic situations that we can burn through much faster. So this is why the self-study and self-inquiry is so important with speeding up the journey and the evolution of us down here in this place of duality on Earth.
Can we shift our path?
Yes, we can shift it from a present tense, but we can also shift it from a past tense too. So we can alter the way in which we visualize or remember, having like a different perceived past memory can also alter and change things in the present and in the future. So time as we see it is not fixed. We can ripple back and forth and change things. The science is starting to catch up with things now. But it's all about holding a certain energy, especially within the heart, that helps us to anchor certain things onto the timeline. So this is where beliefs are super important, and how we perceive ourselves to be, and that form of our self-identity is the most important attribute while changing and fixating to certain paths.
I'm curious, those perceived memories, or are we sort of imagining that? Is that something that we're creating ourselves, or is that tapping into parallel versions of ourselves or other timelines where that did happen in the past?
From our point of view here on Earth, it would be almost like rewriting history. And the way that it's been shown to me is little bubbles of consciousness, and we have multiple different potentials, and we can tweak and adjust and remember things different, and it brings that bubble down closer into our consciousness. So it does actually assimilate and change things in a timeline stance. This would also be where we get Mandela effects come in.
Mm-hmm.
So it might not seem overtly different to certain things that have happened, but it could instill different belief systems or different trajectories when opening towards the future. So when we plant one of these bubbles or these seeds in our memory, even if it's creating and visualizing a perceived memory that hasn't actually happened in physicality, the brain will take it on and have ownership as though it did.
Mm. Does our visualization of that create it somewhere else? Does that create that timeline or that experience, or is it simply our perception of it? Or
if we think about it as creating a ripple or a wave through time, so when you go in and you put your brain towards certain memories, this is working with the harmonics of the brain, and it escalates certain frequencies. And so then we get a different output of a different harmonic waveform. So we can collapse old timelines and make them almost non-existent to our brain and the frequency that we're broadcasting, or we can tap in and create beautiful new ways and pathways through tapping into the brain and different waveforms or different memories. But when we add heart to this, this creates more of a harmonious wave signature between the brain and heart, and this can open up new timelines, new occurrences, new people coming in, new situations. It's as though we're upgrading the version of self, and that means that old timelines will be starved or fade out or feel like they're dying off, and this will be felt in a form of non-resonance with certain people, certain situations, and things from past. So in theory, we're actually building a higher resonance within ourselves, which brings a higher resonance of people and places and opportunity and things to match this wavelength that we're vibrating on.
wow, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. It's really fascinating information. I'm definitely going to need to re-listen to that one.
Yes.
I wish I could paint the visual. It's like watching a symphony of music and art that they're showing me.
Wow, that's beautiful. Are you able to describe any of those visuals?
Yeah, they're showing me when we output. So if we get into a state of theta or even delta or gamma, our brainwaves become more harmonious and more conducive to how we create in this universe and how we create in this reality. When we add heart and feeling and emotion to it, it's like the beautiful chimes in a symphony. And this expands and contracts our thoughts and feelings and emotion to harness and pull things into our reality. We're dancing and spiraling in the creation of our own personal universes when we do this.
Wow. Wow.
It's gold everywhere.
You give the best visuals. Like, I want to be in that symphony. Like, it's amazing.
And we're actually orchestrating right now. And this is also sending out wavelengths to people that are listening. And there's spirals of gold that are forming around them. We're all connected.
Mm-hmm. I can see the gold around you. It's beautiful.
Is there a way to tap into that space of being able to shift and collapse those timelines through making new memories to kind of shift the trajectory, or have, I don't want to say manifestations, but have things come to us quicker at a higher standard?
Yeah. So if we think about old thought forms, old blueprints, old identities, they are no longer serving us. We need to starve these out. So that is a big part of canceling out the noise. And a lot of that's happening in beta. So when our brain's sort of like preoccupied, we might have some of these thoughts come in, but also when we try to relax and meditate, you might find that some of these come into theta as well. So the deeper that we can go, the more powerful the results. But we consciously can override these things just through either saying stop to the monkey mind. And this is just the reticular activating system, trying to keep us in a place of staying safe by staying in the familiar. So the more that we can cancel out the familiar and the known, the more that we can deepen our experience of consciousness. And even like going under, the way that Jake puts me into a hypnotic state, I actually feel before the words even start, I feel the vibration of the molecules of the air and the atmosphere of plasma around me. So if we can train the body to go into this state and to be held encapsulated in this plasma, we actually will put ourselves into almost like a pod stasis of creation. And so each time we want to step into new realities or enhance our cognition or enhance our connectivity to the universe, if we can step into this plasma environment and really connect the heart with the brain, the heart being 5,000 times more powerful than the brain, we can broadcast new frequencies and signals and emotions and feelings out there. And this is how we will change things. Imagine if we did that on a global sense, or even just our soul tribe doing this and broadcasting the feelings out there, the ripples and changes that we can create within our environment and our reality could be world changing.
We are quite powerful.
Yeah.
I had a question. I'm just curious, you spoke of the uncertainty or getting out of the familiar and how that can help us to do this sort of work more effectively or quicker. I'm curious if some of the chaos and the uncertainty in the narrative and in the ways that we're being told to view the world, is that helping us in a sort of a backwards way to become more of these creators and manifestors?
If we think about it in like the limited sense, Think about it as a tape recorder playing the same thing over and over again. So what's been shown to me is Michael Jordan practicing layups and practicing slam dunks. And what they're showing is, imagine if we're practicing these things, but in the negative. So we're practicing and rehearsing, feeling small, feeling limited, feeling shy, or feeling, whatever it is that we're struggling with, whether it's around the physicality or whether it's around anxiousness. A lot of these things are almost to forewarn or to try and protect us from feeling unsafe or unsure and to keep us small. So we really need to delete these old tapes. These old tapes are broadcasting from the past and they're making the future. So the more that we can untangle these tapes or delete them, the more that we can stop projecting the same future day in, day out.
Can I ask for, empaths, they feel really deeply. And so when they're going through a certain old memory or some kind of repeating limited belief or judgment, is there any advice on how to help an empath kind of get through that without having to go through the entire motion of having to feel it all?
Yes. So some of these thoughts and feelings and emotion that these beautiful empaths are feeling, they have an expanded state of awareness around their body. It's almost like a form of protection that's kept them safe and kept them at what we would call an accelerated speed or an accelerated level of conscious awareness. So think about in survival situations in the old days, if we had our field expanded to be able to sense any present danger or any perceived micro expressions or anything that could come in that we could cognitively or even superconsciously be aware of, these beautiful empaths have this ability hyper switched on. So some of the thoughts and feelings and emotions that they're feeling are not even their own. So we can even have thought worms that invade auric spaces or invade public spaces and things like egregores or thought consciousnesses. So think about, for example, walking into a city or a town where there's a lot of drug use that goes on. What happens is there's holes that tear into those geolocations, so geographical locations. And this creates almost like a rip in fabric of where a lot of astral entities can anchor in to our earth. So this is why we get some places that just feel bad. And empathically, we walk into that and we maybe pick up on that energy. We have to be careful not to pick up little hitchhikers or worms or parasites that can cling on to our aura. And this is also through people that more in the negative or more emotionally unstable or volatile. We can also pick up thought forms or these little astral worms or cracks that come through and try to hitchhike onto us. So it's essential that empaths learn how to cleanse their space, to cleanse the aura, and to form beautiful shields of protection.
Well, what advice would you have for folks? I know you shared before some techniques and some approaches for doing this sort of protection as well as clearing. Is there anything specific you would recommend today?
Yeah, I'm getting told the word spiritual washing, spiritual cleansing. So even just perceiving a beautiful golden light that's connected, that's your soul's consciousness, raining down that beautiful gold and showering, cleansing, and protecting. There are other more specific techniques, but this is a good one for general practice. And visualize it forming an auric golden egg of protection around you. Imagine it to be like a beautiful kind of individual personalized plasma golden sun with white plasma rays that are also raining out of it. So see it above the head, about 4 or 5 feet, and raining a plasma arc around you of spiritual protection. The other way that we know of on a physical level would be to practice pranic healing, things that are involving energy clearing, some frequency devices, or some Tesla forms of technology that you can also wear that protect your auric energy are also very useful. But prayer, meditation, in terms of the present tense of what it is that you're activating, so never to the detriment or to the negative of getting into the fear-based things, but if we can be in the positive protective stance and knowing that we are protected and being in a state of gratitude for that protection, as well as calling in beautiful angels and archangels and beings of protection that love us unconditionally. This can help strengthen and add a fortifying effect on the aura, as well as also cleansing after we come home from spaces like this or places where our energy might be more open to harvest. And some of these people that are in these lower mindsets and frequencies might not realize that some of these astral beings are having a banquet off of their energy. So there's a lot of loosh that happens in our lower astral, and the third dimensional reality is a buffet to some of these lower astral entities.
That's wonderful information. Thank you for sharing that.
If we can shift a little bit into that moment of taking our last breath in the physical and then and entering the spiritual world. And so my question is, when we leave the physical world, do we have an immediate knowledge of truth? An immediate understanding of what this all is?
So for a lot of people, they exit in fear. And what I mean shown is someone taking their last breath in fear and they're encapsulated into a bubble. And this is more a bubble where their consciousness is navigating towards a false light. This would be what we call the soul trap. And for those that learn how to relax and trust into peace and go into higher states of perceived awareness, we actually will start to transcend into higher states of reality and oscillate towards the higher dimensions and higher points of consciousness. Is that a good place to start?
Yes. What happens when a soul does come from a place of fear and they're put in this bubble?
They're almost in, similar to what we see down on her earth, as in some people would like to be told what to do. So we see this within a lot of the communist or like the government type structures, and people feeling helpless or innocent, needing to have direction or needing to have someone come and save them. So sometimes when people are in fear, when they're exiting our matrix, and that's the word given, they will be encapsulated into this bubble and put on to be what is almost like a tractor beam or a conveyor belt energetically. And so they are given somewhat a false form of safety in this bubble, and other things with ulterior motives are coming in to mass direct a huge, vast amount of the population and a majority of the souls that are caught up in this Earth 3D matrix. They estimate 80% as a minimum. It could be more than that.
80% of the population is still entrapped in the matrix. Is that what you said?
In this process of this,
bubble.
Yeah, the fear bubble soul trap. And not everyone experiences it as a bubble. They're just explaining it that this is the easiest way to conceptualize or visualize. But it really is almost like a tractor beam or a false light that's harvesting our consciousness and our soul frequency and energy back to be farmed.
So the false light, so people that are in fear, is the fear where I've lived my whole life being fearful of death, or is the fear, is it the same for somebody who has lived their life kind of having somewhat of an understanding and being okay with the concept of death, but for example they could have passed in a very tragic way where they were in fear in the moment that they passed away, that they crossed over? Would it be both, or would it just be the people who lived in fear while through their life?
It's more to do with, I'll explain it in this way, but feel free to ask more questions. The way that we self-governance on a soul level whilst occupying this physicality, and the majority of the time that we, I guess, spend knowing our own truth, this will help us when it comes to the end state. So we can clear the fear through things like tapping or through meditation. A big portion of this is practicing. So it's almost like practicing the art of dying and letting go of our consciousness, letting go of fear, and almost releasing into a joy and happiness to be in an expanded state of consciousness. Whereas when we step into the fearful state, our energy starts to become small and become diminished. And this is when other false matrix systems can step in to, I wouldn't say override, because we do have free will here, but if they can falsify a feeling of safety on a lower level, it's so much easier to harvest these souls, to bring them back into the Loosh harvest matrix system down here. So think about it as kind of like a farming system going on down here on Earth. So the more that we can step into self-governance and autonomy around our feelings and belief and consult with the higher self, the more that we're less likely to be hoodwinked back into this fear-based matrix system.
So this reminds me of the movie Monsters Inc., where the monsters get energy from the fear of children seeing monsters in their closet or under the bed. Is that like a good physical example of what that essentially is?
Yes, definitely. That's a great analogy, especially for when we are in living state. It's a tiny little bit different when we go to the passing state, in that there will be a lot of falsities that are shown to us. This one would be well explained in, there's an episode of Star Trek that displays this false light matrix. I know Barry Littleton and I have talked about it on a few episodes of shows that we've done, but essentially they show a negative entity portraying as a helpful one when someone is passing, and they portray also loved ones and other false lights wanting to usher the person either back into the state of living or into this state of reincarnation. It's also spoken about in different systems of consciousness, where they talk about samsara, and they talk about different states like samadhi, or getting into higher levels of consciousness. So if we can burn through our lessons, similar to how we spoke about at the start, or start to consciously meditate and reflect on why we're here on a soul level. So there'll be different people that show up in our life to help us finish off and finalize karmic lessons. But if we can have epiphanies and awareness around this beforehand, we can fast track things. And this will also help shift us up quite a few levels in that state of samsara, as well as shifting us up further away from that bubble and the false light matrix. We're more likely to be consciously aware and to step into this path of ascension. Some of these beings that we hear about in higher states of consciousness, or beings that we would say would be more of an ascended master-like state, will stay behind to help the people of Earth to expand their state of awareness and consciousness and to really choose self-governance. And this is what we see across many different people that are speaking from higher forms of consciousness and coming in from other higher universes into our little corner of the galaxy, our universe. A lot of them will be teaching self-governance, higher love, and really accepting ourselves on a deeper level. So Jesus or Yeshua was a person that spoke of such things. Mary Magdalene, also like beings, like example would be Buddha, Kuan Yin, beings that have achieved a certain higher state of illumination or consciousness that stayed behind to become luminaries of light, to be a shining living example of what we can do if we change trajectory at that moment upon leaving the body and stepping into a state of either rainbow body or ascension.
So when someone passes in fear and they're put in this bubble-like energy, what form are they in?
So another way to look at it is their consciousness can also split and pop into fractals. So part of the soul will be harvested to reincarnate down here in the earth realm, but part of their soul memory will also be encoded into more of the fear astral matrix side of things. So where we work with mediumship, or we also talk to someone's soul that has been, a medium talking to them from the other side, you'll have many different fractals or splits. So part of that soul will go on to reincarnate when it's the appropriate time back into the earth realm. Part of their soul will also go on to go into almost like a school system, to be schooled in karmic things, to be schooled and shown different life lessons and how they can on some level learn and evolve. And many of them will actually be shocked because a lot of them will have been closed-minded to life after death.
What about the souls that don't die in fear? The ones that are comfortable with death and understand the process as a human can? And what happens the moment they cross over?
So they go to a state of bardo. Everyone does that. And I've seen this in people in comas as well. So think of it being a golden lit garden or bardo type area. Some people will describe this also as a body of water and going on a boat across the bardo in between states of consciousness or in between worlds. So for people that don't pass or cross over in fear, many of them can opt to oscillate up into higher planes of existence or step into higher planes of reality and take other physical forms in higher states and dimensions. So where we talk about people having lifetimes on different stars or different planets, a lot of these are higher states or wavelengths and forms, and many of them are like schools, just like Earth. And some will burn through more of their karmic lessons, reshuffle and re-choose what they want to experience, and some will opt to come back to Earth. But a lot of us down here in the Earth plane that are part of our soul tribe are not here very often. They come in more as teachers, wisdom keepers, reminders that all of these higher states and planes of existence do exist, and we have conscious choice on passing as to where we go next. We can't necessarily ascend to the highest planes and dimensions. There is a lot of learning that is done between lifetimes. And don't forget, we also are existing in parallel states. So this is one linear concept of that straight line that we've spoken about in many other sessions. we also usually will refer to each finger being a place of existence on these quantum parallels. So we are existing in all of these states simultaneously.
When a soul leaves and has the option to go to a different, for lack of a better word, location, if you will, do they have the option whether they want to reincarnate back onto this earth reality or move on to something else?
Yes. So some will get joy and really feel fulfilled on a soul mission for coming and being a teacher or a light worker or a helper down here. And they will choose as kind of a self-service or volunteer, just like in Hunger Games, volunteering as tribute is how we often joke about it. So also we have the option, and a lot of us have such strong heart connections that if some of our soul family are down here in the earth realm, it's quite common to also pop our hand up to come back down to work with our teams or work with our soul tribes. But you will also hear some souls that feel more of a homesickness for the stars that have come in to the earth realm as a place of servitude. It's not somewhere that their heart really chooses to be or really wants to be, but there's a desire to speed up the evolution process. And just as we have people that are Blue Soul Group or midwives that help to speed up the ascension birthing process for the souls coming into higher conscious states of awareness down here on the earth, they also volunteer as tributes to do that in other planes and dimensions and other planets. So some souls will choose very different roles and want to experience a multitude or a box of chocolates type example of different lifetimes and skills acquired and lived. And others will be almost like a glutton for punishment in joking sense of going time and time again to help with this ascension process and really being warriors of light.
Well, I'm curious. You're mentioning the ascension process, and if we can just touch back on this idea of sort of that reincarnation trap or being redirected. I've heard some people talk about, and it's come through in sessions, that this may be shifting or changing the ability for this trap to happen in this realm. I'm curious if that's true, and if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, the more that we speak about this and add light to the subject, the more that it spreads in the morphogenic field. And people will receive downloads whilst in that moment of that traction and that extraction. And think about it as a golden fishing net that's woven. And some of these bubbles or extractions will slip through these nets. So the more that we're becoming aware of it, the more that we create holes and ripples in that morphogenic field of the soul net. So the more of us that learn to escape that loose harvesting process, the more that become aware. So the way it's been visually shown to me is kind of this tractor beam, but imagine a honeycomb type net, and these bubbles that were being extracted or soul harvested in, slipping through fine little holes that are appearing in this tractor beam. And each soul that slips through creates a bigger hole or tear within that program. And so the dark is actually quite annoyed at this because they can't actually slow that down or reconnect or repair that hole within their program because their time is limited. And it was a false portraying of light that is inauthentic. There was a workaround. It's not necessarily what you would say is a legit universal law that they've been abiding by. They've had a workaround with creating a false light. It's a trick, if you will.
Not to get super dark, but are there humans that are actually not only aware of this looshing process in the physical, like while we're in physical form, but is there also a looshing trade between humans and other entities that have some kind of trade where we give you this for that?
Yes, and to build on that too, they're showing me the word Pyron, Pryyion, would be how I'm being shown phonetically spelt. Doesn't mean it's spelt that grammar-wise in our 3D, but that's how it sounds. And I'm being shown that as a little parasitic entity or a worm, if you will, that intercepts and intercedes into the human. I would call it an energy thread that's above the crown, that's connected to their soul's consciousness. So think about it as a parasite or a worm that hijacks or harvests the purity of the soul energy. So it's through people getting caught up in negative or bad, toxic things that they leave themselves open to this hijacking. So some of these soul harvest energies are also people that have had this hijacking take place. So some of these are human, but they're hijacked. And we also see some of the reptilian, darker draconian side of things, as well as other ET entities, such as the Greys, that are also working in assistance with some of these beings. But yes, there is humans that have been intercepted, hijacked, or take over. Some of them will even have people that are like reptilian hijackers that take over the body. So you will even see sometimes the eyes flicker or roll dark. You will get a sense or a feeling of lower, darker states of consciousness running and operating behind the scenes with this. But it is a multi-species system that has been running and operating for lifetimes, going back to the dawn of our history.
What is it that the humans who are aware of this and interacting with these other species, what is it that the humans are getting in return for all the looshing that's happening? Is it minerals? What is it?
Yeah, so I'm being shown root chakra and sacral chakra being activated. And I would say the best way I could describe it that they're showing me visually is there's chemicals within the physical body that are like a drug. And to healthy individuals, when they see some of these darker things, it would be a disgusting neurotoxin that would make you want to vomit or purge. And this is where angelic or pure beings have a fight or flight sense from wanting to protect innocent and wanting to get away from anything dark or negative. But people that have been infiltrated or given the elixir, talking about the A word, I won't say it here in case it's flagged, but you guys get the Adrena word that is quite often mentioned. So people that have had a taste of this, it corrupts their biology and it does something within the brain and puts a toxin into the brain that causes this worm-like parasite to also take root, harvest, and could astrally. But I'm also being shown that it activates things within the sexual glands and organs. So it infiltrates the endocrine system and the chakras, and it creates a feeder cycle of where these things get exacerbated and fed, and that loose energy gets fed back into their brain, and they receive waves of a manufactured bliss or utopia that is disgusting to people that are more operating from pure soul energy. So you can detoxify these certain things, although it really is a hard thing, as the soul is also being corrupted and free will has come into it. So these people are not innocent, you would say.
I'd imagine, even though this is dark, this is what their soul has chosen for the incarnation, or is it a total hijacking?
So it works on many levels. So, for example, let's give the vision of someone who maybe wants to be in power, or someone who maybe wants to be what we call celebrity. And a way to corrupt them would be to feed the ego. So someone who has this would also, you could have a balanced sense of this and a sense of someone knowing right from wrong. But if we have energy, astral hijacking, and these lower forms of consciousness are feeding the ego, this person could easily be hijacked or corrupted to undertake lower things if it was to feed that ego or feed that entity to get them to a certain place of power or a certain place of fame. And so they might not be fully consciously thinking to the best of their ability outcomes and negative effects. So this is where we see them sign over their souls or drink the Kool-Aid.
Can they actually sign over their souls? Can someone actually sign over their soul?
Yes. So there are other ways to, I guess we would call it, disinfect or disintegrate and cancel and delete some of these soul contracts and agreements. A lot of it is wrapped up in ritualistic abuse as well. And so it's not so straightforward and simple to go about untying or detoxifying these soul contracts and agreements. And it's not something that would be deleted or cleansed and purified within one lifetime. It takes at least a cycle of 3 to 4 lifetimes to purge and purify the soul after having such a dark path. They're also giving me the word destiny too. So it's like their destiny changing or stepping into a different destiny path. So something also has to be released and unlocked around acquiring that destiny. So this might also change the trajectory and outcome of why they signed that soul contract. So they might have fame rebuked or places of power rebuked as well. So it's a pretty complex thing, but it can be cleansed and purified after a lot of work.
Are they conscious of this selling their soul type of moment in their life? Is that a conscious decision that they're making, or is that something that's energetically taking place?
I would say about, for some, 20% conscious. For those that have been used, abused, and confused and drugged, 3% conscious. So when making decisions from that lower level of consciousness or that crack of awareness, it would almost be they think it's a joke. And so there's not full 100% capability and awareness around this. So there is a bit of sorrow for some that have been through that torture, manipulation, used, abused, confused cycle that we see within some younger child stars.
I'm curious, is this signing away a fractal of their soul, or is this, I mean, because this is a physically incarnated human, and so do they have sort of the right or the autonomy to sign over their oversoul, or like that larger part, or is this like a fractal?
It would more be the fractal. So how you and I have spoken about the oversoul on other episodes, Jake, it would be, we still have other parts of our soul occupying other bodies in other parallel lifetimes and off-world and other earth lifetime situations as well. the other way to describe that 3 and 20% conscious part of those people, remember that when we're working and operating in the world, most of that is coming from 95% of our consciousness. So only 5% is in autonomy and operation while making decisions consciously. So think about 3% of that 5%. It really is a minute amount for some of these people that have been through these things, not having full awareness as to what they're doing. And then there's others that have so many entities and things, especially any that have been through darker magic or partaken in some of these ritualistic things. There's a lot of entities that have hijacked and hooked onto them. So when it comes time for them to sign over, it seems something light compared to a normal human that would see that as something very, very dark and very irreversible.
I'm curious if you can elaborate or describe the connection between, because this very much sounds like sort of villains and good guys, and I know that oftentimes the most villainous in our lives can be very closely connected to us at a soul level or at a higher soul level. What are the connections between those being sort of taken advantage of in these situations, or finding themselves in these situations, whether conscious or not? Can you tell us a little bit about the relationships there?
Do you mean the innocent victims that have maybe, I guess, found themselves in unfortunate situations? Is that what you mean?
I guess I'm curious more about those the people who have signed away their soul, or signed away the fractal. What sort of relationships do they have with those they've signed it over to?
Yes. So they have very limited autonomy when it comes to making decisions for themselves. And a lot of their mental mind is also hijacked. So you will see splits, and I guess we would refer to the MK Ultra programming that's also done with these people. So a lot of them maybe think that they have free will when they sign over their soul and that they can enjoy and partake in whatever prizes that they wish on Earth, but a lot of them are actually hijacked from that moment forth. It's a little bit like in The Little Mermaid, Ariel giving away her voice to Ursula the Sea Witch. She doesn't realize the underlying hidden fine print of the contract.
I'd like to move us off of this just for a little bit, because I think I don't want to give it any more power or attention than we've already given it. And what you shared, Solreta, was amazing. To lighten it up a little bit, you mentioned something.
Subject. I'm just trying to push some light through my body.
Yeah, perfect.
To
Okay.
clear that channel and consciousness away from darker subjects.
Yes, let that golden shower come over you. Sounds terrible, but
I get what you mean.
you mentioned something, you brought up, mediumship and all that. So I wonder, when someone, for example, if I'm receiving a reading and my grandmother comes through, what aspect of my grandmother is that actually coming through? Has she moved on somewhere, but she's able to still communicate with, I guess that would be her soul group in this incarnation? Or who's actually speaking and showing up as my grandmother?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to explain this, because many of us are in different states, different places once we cross over. So some people that have been parts of government programs or things like Montauk experiments or Philadelphia experiments, and yes, even CERN to a degree, some of these souls have almost like Some of them have like a quantum entanglement, or some of the souls will go into a place held between dimensions, almost like a little bit of a soul trap in pocket dimensions in a way, just from what I've seen through some of my work. And you'll have with some people, so say for the example you gave, contacting your grandmother. So you'll have the physical body is the part that we see decays and passes away and returns to Gaia. But the consciousness, part of this will, in some situations, go into that soul harvesting reincarnation process where we come back into Earth. So you may even have where that soul has incarnated back, but that memory and soul consciousness that we can still communicate is like a fractal of that person's consciousness. So just as we can tap back into past, present, future, and we know that it coexists, just how we described the fingers on the hand being in parallel times and dimensions and being in many places at time. So we can talk to other people that we have lost, loved ones, but they may have also reincarnated back. And some of them will be in what I would say is like a school process system. So going on to learn the lessons, and many of them will have evolved and grown when they move out of the physical. And some of them will be in amazement and wonderment of looking back. What's conveyed to me is love is always the highest, most important thing. Once people die, they realize just how important love really is. And I've seen people come back into body in coma states, just being reminded of the love that they have from their loved ones.
So just to clarify, if you're able to speak to a loved one, does that always mean that they have, the only reason you're able to communicate with them is because they've also reincarnated on planet Earth, and so there's a fractal of them present, or no?
No, it's a little bit like a radio station. So we can tune into their broadcast channel, and that's what mediums are really great at doing. So just like we're tuning into a broadcast channel now. So when we tune into higher self and into more ascended or spiritual beings that love us unconditionally, we're tuning into higher radio stations. So when we tune into loved ones that are past, it's just broadcast on a different frequency or different station. So if we think about that being one essence of their soul or one fractal of their soul, we can communicate to that part of them. This is also demonstrated in, I don't know the name of the movie, but there's a father who passes and communicates to his son via an old transistor radio that is found, I think, in his workshop. And he's communicating to the father through the radio, through space and time, even though the father has already passed. So think about it in that way, that time as we perceive it is non-linear on a human level. So we do exist in multiple spaces and dimensions and occupy these places all at once. So we could be in the bardo and our spirit and soul can still convey messages to our loved ones via the radio transmission of a medium, or part of our soul might be reincarnated into the earth. But that soul memory or earth kind of time link that we have is still available to access and pull the information down. It's almost like a download and looking up files on the internet or accessing the cloud of our consciousness. Another way to think about it is with tesseracts and traveling through space and time, we can travel to these different places, different dimensions, different pockets, and we can exist in these different places as well at the same space and time. So it really is non-linear.
Okay, and some really random thought came into me, so I'm going to go with it. Is there a difference to the soul? Does it make a difference whether a human body is buried versus cremated?
Interesting question. It's mainly if we come to the core of it around respect. So if we give respect and honor our loved ones, it doesn't matter too much in terms of the semantics that are tied up within religion. So we know religion to be, on a human level, a form of control. So as long as the body and the loved one is given a farewell in respect, and knowing that the consciousness hangs around the body for around about 72 hours, 3 days. So if we're mindful of this and respect the consciousness still having residual amounts of electrical activity within the body, the brain, the heart, the eyes, within that period of time, and within some of the nadis and the chakras and the acupuncture system, as long as we wait a little bit of time before we farewell our loved ones, it doesn't matter so much. But a lot of it is tied up in religion.
I love it. My mom freaks out when I say I'd like to be incarnated. Do we have time for a little bit more, Jake? Solreta?
How are you feeling, Solreta?
Yeah, I could probably do one more.
Oh, well, then I'm going to give you a heavy duty one that might take a second. Just kidding. But actually, it's a big one. And it is next on the list. Are we an aspect of source having a physical experience?
Yes. So where we've described the oversoul in the past, and Jacob and I have also talked about this on other shows, if we think about source being a beautiful fractal of light, and then there was a time where the little fractals split off from that larger fractal to go and experience different lives, different waveforms, different forms of consciousness to explore and create on their own. So it's source experiencing itself through infinite waves and infinite possibilities of consciousness. So we are a little fractal of that light. But if we think about source being an oversoul diamond fractal of light, and there we're one little diamond fractal that has a multitude of soul expressions, fractals. So think about the diamond shining, and each little glint or rainbow or fractal that comes off that is one of our soul essences that incarnates into a different life form, whether it's physical, non-physical, higher dimensional, earth realm. We occupy multiple space and time, all coexisting in the one time, not the linear concept that we're programmed or falsified to in school.
Does source have a source?
There is one actual original source. So when I look beyond, I just see what seems to be a void space, which is interesting because this they're relating to me is how we talk about a yoni birthing a soul essence into the world. So I'm being showed that Barry Littleton and I have talked about it as makos or black holes. And we know this to be record keepers of the universe. So there would be these black holes that have this beautiful diamond fractal of light that we know is source, but there is a multitude of sources as well. And then when I trace that back, it keeps going and going and going, almost like fractals. If we look at the Mandelbrot and the beautiful paisley-like design and print unfolding on itself, and then we look within the pattern and it's unfolding on itself again, it just goes on and on and on like an Mobius strip.
And what is the point of it all?
Learning and love. If we can return back to the essential source of love, we can actually bypass a lot of lower frequency lessons. So practicing regularly, feeling that transmission of source and love, we can actually start to migrate away from some of these lower lessons.
I'm curious, you mentioned love, and I know that our human concept of that is perhaps somewhat different than it is on higher levels. Can you explain that love a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because there is a distinguished energy. So, humanity in the dimensional realm, the color clairvoyantly that we see mostly around the heart chakra is green, which is more of a physicality, third dimensional love. And it does have limitation in terms of when we look at a higher frequency, upper level love, it comes in as beautiful essence rippling of pinks and golds. And this is more conducive and very similar to do with source and the love that we experience from source. So some beings will actually remember themselves existing in this state. And I think we spoke about this in one of the other sessions that we did, in one of my memories being splitting off from source, but being a gold and pink light. So this is an essence of a higher form of love. So some of us remember being actually this love. Does that help sort of distinguish between the two different types of love? I would say it's about probably 80%, 88% of people in the earth realm that more are akin to just the lower astral form of love and a what's in it for me type mentality rather than servitude. So, servitude or coming in to help the whole or to be what we call a light worker or a being of service is more coming in with waves of this higher love frequency. These souls come in from higher dimensions and not usually just from earthbound.
Hmm. No, that's a beautiful answer, and I'm so glad you shared it. Thank you.
Thank you guys for all of your questions, and also to our soul tribe. As we've said in the other ones, I feel them around us when we're talking. So I just want to express my love, my gratitude to them and to you guys, and for the amazing questions. And thank you to helping us to stretch and to grow and open our minds. And yeah, just sending waves of love and gratitude to you, Yiannah, and to you, Jacob.
Thank you. I can feel
Thank
it.
you.
Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us before we go?
I feel satisfied and happy. Thank you.
Thank you.